Now we're going to talk about symbols and how symbols can be used by leaders to try to advance a foreign policy or public policy, or simply to try to get a group of people to follow what they want. What do I mean by a symbol? It's an abstract representation and perhaps a simplification of something that's bigger and more complicated. Of course, I can give you some examples. Think about what some of the symbols of America are. One of our most commonly held symbols is the American flag. Also consider the American eagle. Think about the cross for Christians, the crescent moon for Islam. Think about the hammer and sickle for communists. What kinds of symbols does your school employ? Are you the Trojans? Are you the Vikings? Do you have sports symbols, the Jayhawks or the Blue Devils? Or our society is full of symbols. If you look at this shirt, for example, you have a picture of the Irish flag with an IRA terrorist in front of it. What does that symbolize? How about this shirt that I'm wearing now? Is this a symbol of Islam? Actually, it's not. It's the flag of Turkey, which is a predominantly Muslim country, but the moon and star actually represent symbols from their civil war. The blood that was shed and the reflection of the moon and the star in the blood is what the Turkish flag actually is supposed to represent. How about the fact that I'm wearing a different shirt, a more conservative shirt now? Does that give you a different image of me? Or if I popped the collar, would that give me a slightly different image on top of that? How about settings of color and lighting? In fact, if you put somebody in an unnatural color like this, you might be less likely to trust them. You might be more likely to think that they're evil or scary or something like that. Natural colors that occur in the spectrum of our normal light are considered to be more trustworthy. Now I'm getting a little bit off track as far as talking about image. However, it is important to realize that leaders are quite conscious of the sort of tricks that it may take in order to get people to get from point A to point B. Now, before I tell you more about symbols, I have to ask you another question. Who is this? Is it a trick question? Come on, puppy. Come on. Come on. Who's your friend? Who's your friend? Who is it? You say that's George Bush? Is that President Bush? You're wrong. That's not President Bush. That, my friends, is a picture. It is an image of George Bush. George Bush is a symbol. The point is, you know virtually nothing about this person. And the interesting thing is that you're educated. You probably know more about this person than the average person who would probably vote for him. That's what's interesting about symbols. With symbols, you don't have to know everything about an idea, about a concept, about a person. All you need to know is the simplified version, and it's enough to sell you all by itself because it makes you feel strongly about it, or about him or her in this case. There are a couple of lessons that I think can be drawn from this. First is that symbols simplify the way we feel about things. Second, symbols aren't just things, they can be people as well. And third, symbols represent a reassurance, or a threat, potentially. If you see, say, a flag being burned, that might be threatening to an American, reassuring to someone else elsewhere in the world. And so the very same symbol can sometimes have divergent effects depending on which audience it's being pointed at. Now, there are symbols that some of which are strictly referential. Take a copyright symbol, for example. I don't know about you, but when I see that C with a little circle around it, I don't get all upset or anything like that. With symbols, people feel more than they think. And whereas leaders may not always be aware of what they're doing in terms of evoking symbols, a lot of them are quite aware, and it certainly can be a means to try to get people to feel certain things about issues. Let's say the president is giving a speech, and he's got a big American flag behind him, and he's using words like freedom and democracy, and talking about other people in the world as enemies. And think about, he's dressed in a dark blue suit, and he's got a red tie on and a white shirt. You know, all of a sudden, not only are you listening to the validity of his arguments, but you may be feeling something deeper inside. You are compelled in many ways to like to feel good about what he has to say and to believe that he's representing your country at some level that you can't even necessarily perceive. Think about Hitler and the use of symbols. What does the swastika mean? And how was he able to use the swastika to try to compel lots of people to feel good about the German nation and to feel bad about Jews and other out-groups that he summarily sent to gas chambers? So symbols are powerful things, important manipulative tools, and indeed ways that certainly one part of the world can be mobilized against another.